Hello and welcome back to another World of Warcraft video. Today I'm going to be covering my top 10 places in World of Warcraft, and by place I mainly just mean settlements, landmarks, and that kind of thing. And of course this is a personal list, it's not objective in any way because, well, places themselves are inherently a little bit subjective. So if you do have your own favourite places, and any reasons why, please let me know in the comments, and I will hopefully be able to feature you in an upcoming video. So without further dilly-dallying, let's get into the list itself. So coming in at number 10, we have Theramore City. So when I first came here, I was on my very first character, and to a new human who hadn't been to Kalimdor before and didn't really know a great deal about the lore, it really did feel like a lone bastion of civilization on a very hostile continent. The city itself was kind of large and majestic in comparison to a lot of the other things that I had seen, and it just had this great sense of place to it. I'm not really too sure how else to convey that by saying a sense of place. Then, of course, what I think was very well done was that venturing out into the swamps really did feel like you were leaving a safe haven, and I think this effect both amplified the sense of adventure when you left, and then also the sense of relief when you were returned. It was one of those zones, or not zones, one of those settlements that kind of felt like home for a little bit of time, and I think that was something that was really well done. Then in terms of quests, there were also some really great things as well. I enjoyed the whole questline about the insurrection and the potential rebellion with all the, all those Theramore soldiers. And then the Kraken quest, the one where a Kraken attacked the city, that was really damn cool as well. So overall, I think very good, and that Kraken quest was a major break from the norm back when I went through this area. Now, of course, just about Dustwallow Marsh in general, I played this after patch 2.3 when it had received a little bit of a revamp in terms of the quests. So before we move on to the next topic, it's worth saying that I really don't like how this place was destroyed in Mists of Pandaria. I don't think that butchering the place was worth it, especially because we just got a dull scenario in-game and a few plot points for Jaina. Surely they could have handled this better while still giving her character some sort of strong emotional drive going into the rest of the expansion. So yeah, Theramore, a solid place that I have great memories of, and that is why it gets number 10. Coming in at number 9, we have Sentinel Hill. So, original Westfall took a really, really long time for me to get through because I was a total noob, and also I only really played for about an hour a day. So this meant that I spent a great deal of time in Sentinel Hill, and I know that this is basically purely nostalgia talking, but I do have fantastic memories of the place. Westfall was, at least to me, pretty damn scary, so Sentinel Hill provided a much needed just reprieve from the danger of being out in the world. Another nice thing is that because I had been so used to Elwyn Forest, when I went into the zone of Westfall, it just felt far more open and barren. And I mean barren in a kind of a good way, a bit more sort of desolate and dangerous, and that further amplified how much Sentinel Hill just kind of felt like home. Then I also loved the idea of it being basically a lone tower on a hill. It made Westfall itself feel, as I said earlier, kind of barren, and I think that was really nice. The new Sentinel Hill is fine, but I think that the older, more low-key version was far more in tune with my own personal tastes. And I also think that a great thing that happened here is that this idea of it just being a single tower on the top of a hill that didn't have a massive surrounding city or anything, and it was great because it made it a landmark. As a new player, this was really helpful for instantly knowing where I was in the zone without having to look at the map. This is actually a really important part of game design as well, because if people can navigate by using important landmarks in a zone, then it will really immerse them in that zone, instead of just looking at dots on a map or perhaps a map on a website. The immersion really is increased by this effect, and I think that's also a great reason why Sentinel Hill gets my vote. Also, in terms of quests, I did kind of enjoy the Defias stuff, and I don't know, just new me thought that was a very, very cool place all the way back in 2000 and whenever. I think it was 2007. Or maybe it's 2006. I think it was 7. So, next, at number 8, we have Shire. And, yeah, don't worry, I'm going to start moving on from the old nostalgia thing soon. But this was the first major settlement that I ever went to. It's not ultra special, but there is just something about the place that's really sort of nice, it's quiet, it's idyllic, and it's really damn relaxing. It was also the first time in the game where we were given a bunch of quests in a good few different areas and told to go out and do your quests and explore the world and discover new stuff. And because Shire was really the hub of this new interaction, it definitely solidified just a kind of nice little place somewhere in the back of my mind. And even after I was done with Elwyn Forest, I would often end up hanging out at Goldshire. When I was at higher levels, many people used to go to this place and just start dueling or chatting or just various things like that. It was also a place that facilitated a lot of really great memories because we would always meet up there and then head off to other places back when everyone was a complete lowbie. And yeah, just all in all, great memories. Then of course the place was also mental during the Undead Invasion event at Wrath of the Lich King. That was a hell of a great memory. It's the only time where I have seen, well, I'd say nearly hundreds of players, and with the entire zombie thing going on, it was absolutely insane. And Goldshire was really the epicenter of it on my server, and that was kind of great, actually. That's something I'm going to remember for quite a while. Okay, so coming in at number 7, we have Ironforge, and this is also kind of a nostalgia one, but really I think that it was a very well-designed place. Back in the day, Ironforge was a very, very popular city, and since we were all in ground mounts at the time, the place felt kind of bustling and full of life. This was also helped by the mixture of kind of nice big wide open spaces and corridors, and some of the little smaller more confined spaces. Then of course the actual houses that were inside Ironforge were pretty cool in the way that they were just kind of like hewn into the rock. I thought that was really nice as well. So the feeling of being sort of full of life, combined with the city's warm and kind of industrious aesthetic, meant that it just felt like a really nice, lively place to hang out. The difference between the cool tones of Dunmoreau and then the warm colour palette of Ironforge really did help out in this regard as well. Also, just looking at the city as a newly rolled dwarf hunter was very impressive too. It's somewhere that I basically saw on and off for quite a while. When I finally got there, I thought, damn, this place is really, really cool, and it just felt like they had pulled off the feeling of it being a city within a mountain. I just think that was done so well. Another thing that's worth mentioning is the goblin tram, the gnome tram that went between Stormwind and Ironforge. I thought that was another really nice feature, and it was just one of those memorable things that those two cities had. It's also kind of cool that a lot of Alliance players in the Eastern Kingdoms just had this transportation backbone between the two areas. Okay, so next, coming in at number 6, we have Icecrown Citadel. So, I think first of all, the actual design of the Citadel just looks amazing. It was massive, it was really imposing, and it's just a feature that dominated so much of the Icecrown zone. This definitely goes back to the idea of what I said with Sentinel Hill. No matter where you were probably in the shadow of Icecrown Citadel, and that meant that it just was always there, looming over you and saying, hey, I'm the ultimate evil. It was just a nice little bit of storytelling via the world, and it set the tone very well. So in terms of the actual architecture and texturing of the structure, well, I think it was all very well done. The mix of the dark metal, and then the massive spikes and spires was all just so cold and menacing, and dangerous to human life. I think that this, again, backs up the lore of the place very well. Then also the music of the Citadel was very, very cold, and while it's not the stuff that I would regularly listen to, the music in the Fall of the Lich King album is certainly some of the best atmospheric work that Blizzard have really ever done. Then another thing that's worth talking about is just Icecrown Citadel as a raid. I think that the interior was really well done. It had this really nice degree of freedom to it, and there was just this great feeling of progression as you worked your way up through the Citadel to the Frozen Throne. Overall, hell of a nice place. Actually no, hell of a horrible place, but in the right way. Alright, so coming in at number 5, we have the Isle of Keldanas. So first of all, I love the Blood Elf stuff. Especially just architecturally and in terms of music and the overall colour palette, I just think it's absolutely gorgeous. And this was my first large-scale experience of it, so it was really something that was very new to me at the time. Then of course the island itself, in my opinion, was really well laid out. Everything was pretty compact, and there was always something to do or see that was all over the place. Basically, the zone felt just kind of dense and packed. Then, of course, the mix of having both demonic and blood elf forces was aesthetically quite nice because you're always finding something kind of different. Then, I guess the Naga as well. But overall, I think what really nailed this place for me was just the looks and the excellent music. And also had this really nice kind of mid, like, sort of summer and autumn feel to it, which I just think was really cool. And then it was also nice how the Shattered Sun offensive base was basically right beside where the Blood Elves and the demons were attacking. It just kind of made it feel like a war zone, and it was pretty cool that, like, you go in and you see the building that you reported into was just covered in archers who were trying to fight off demons, and then all the bridges and things were also, well, covered with archers trying to fight off the demons. It just worked out really well, I think. It felt like a pretty cool battle zone. And then also in terms of the daily quests element of the zone, I really liked them at the time, and I thought the zone progression mechanic was quite cool as well. Alright, so coming in at number 4, we have the Dark Portal. And I don't have a great deal to say about this, but basically, it was just such a massive change in scale from what we were used to in Azeroth. It truly felt like you were moving in to this crazy, hostile, destroyed world, and with that massive fight going on at the foot of the gate as well, it all just reinforced the feeling of danger. I used to listen to the Instance podcast a lot more than I have the time to do now, but Scott Johnson, who was the host of the podcast, was always talking about his Hellfire moment when he first stepped through the portal with the Burning Crusade launch, and how he was just blown away by the scale of it all. Honestly, just I think a really great moment, and it's something that just your first time back in 2007 was extremely impressive. So overall, yeah, really great vibes about the Dark Portal. Then, of course, the portal itself actually looks damn cool. It's massive. I love the kind of green twisting colors, and the actual architecture of the thing itself has got a lot of really cool detailing and things like that. So overall, yeah, really cool part of the world. Then when you did a lot of the quests in Hellfire, of course, it was also often in either the shadow of Hellfire Citadel or the Dark Portal. Once again, that just reinforced the idea of the zone just being kind of evil and a bit sort of torn up. Okay, so coming in at number 3, we have the city of Dalaran. As a hub city, I think that it was done very well. And sure, Dalaran lag was annoying for some, but for me it wasn't a major issue because at the time I had finally got half-decent internet. Then, of course, the layout itself was nice and compact, yet still rather sensible. After you learned the city, it was sort of easy and fast to navigate, though this could just be me clicking with the place's actual design, and I'm not too sure that everyone liked the layout. Also, aesthetically, I absolutely loved it. I thought the visuals were really nice, and they were actually a great break from the kind of regular Northrend style of doing things. I also loved the music. I found it to be really relaxing, and just the kind of, I don't know, overall, I just think musically Wrath of the Lich King has been definitely my favorite expansion. So, yeah. Then another thing that I really liked is how this was all done on the ground during Wrath of the Lich King. This meant that you actually navigated the city itself rather than just flying from building to building and point to point. Honestly, if you just think of modern Stormwind, you never actually run through the city, you just mount up and fly from point to point, you never take in much of the city, and you never really just see any players or have any interaction with much of anything. I still remember the 200 plus player mammoth trains that were rolling throughout Dalaran, and that's just the kind of thing that wouldn't happen as much anymore with the flying mounts being allowed in cities. Then, I just think it's got the similar effect of what I described with Ironforge, where it just felt a lot more alive and bustling, and I think that in a massively multiplayer game, that's such an important sense to get, and I really hope that in Warlords of Draenor, that Karabor and whatever the Horde equivalent are, in terms of the actual faction cities, I just really hope that they will feel like that. If they nail that, then I think it's definitely going to go a long way to me enjoying some elements of the expansion. Alright, so coming in at number 2, we have Oshagun, and I'm going to cheat a little bit here and mention Tillar as well. So Oshagun itself is just really a hell of a set piece. It was a great break from the rest of the zone, and overall between Oshagun, the Throne of the Elements, and some of the various other things, it was a zone that was rather varied but all within the same theme, and I think that was really well done. Also, just having that, once again, just having that large landmark present throughout the whole zone was great in terms of zone design. No matter where you were, it always helped for orientation, and I think that it perhaps made the zone feel a little bit more expansive and epic. Oshagun itself has actually got some pretty interesting lore as well. Basically, it is a Naru spaceship, and the Draenei used it to leave their home planet of Argus when all the stuff went down with the Burning Legion. If you want to know a little bit more about that, just search my channel for the Prophet Velen, and I pretty much cover it all in that video. Then as for Tillar itself, I'm not too sure exactly why I liked it so much, but there's just something about the place that really clicked with me. I like the Draenei architecture, and just seeing the Draenei broken I think was pretty damn cool. So overall, it was just a place that I enjoyed as a quest hub quite a bit. So yeah, good stuff all around. Okay, so let's just do some quick little honorable mentions. So first of all, I think the Tempest Keep was cool, but I didn't spend enough time there, so I can't really warrant putting it on the list. Also, Ulduar and basically just most of the Storm Peaks does deserve a mention. The sheer scale of the area was amazing, and how that tied into the music was very effective as well. And then of course it makes sense because it was, created by Titans. Overall, a really nice place. Then I also enjoyed the Argent Tournament quite a bit. Basically, it had this really nice, happy atmosphere, and it was always just kind of bustling and full of people and life, and there was always just things going on. I think was a really cool effect. Though the one thing I will say is that those Blade daily quests were kind of horrible, and I never want them to ever be in the game again. And then finally, Darkshire Town definitely deserves a mention for just being so damn atmospheric. It was really cool, and as a lobby, it was a little bit scary, if I'm honest. And finally, coming in at number 1, we have my absolute favourite, just single place in World of Warcraft, and that is actually Valgard. That may seem a little bit crazy to some people, but, well, Valgard, and then including the surrounding areas, I think is just one of the most amazing vistas and just questing areas in the game. I just loved it. So first of all, the initial introduction boat ride did a fantastic job of setting the scene. There were tons of really cool things like the burned out ships, and then that opened up into the massive vista of the main settlement itself, then Utgard and all the surrounding very cool villages. I just think it looked absolutely amazing. The scale of Utgard Keep, and then just the sheer cliff faces, and all the features that were crammed in everywhere. Hell, even the waterfalls looked really amazing in my opinion. It was just such a view to take in, and just as an introduction to the Wrath of the Lich King expansion, I just think it was kind of mind-blowing and really cool. That scene was essentially my Hellfire moment, so I really did love it. Then, of course, the introduction quests also set the scene really well. I think that both here and the Alliance Borean Tundra variant had some great introduction experiences, starting off with the kind of being on the defensive and barely scraping by in this hostile new continent was just a really effective way of getting people into the overall story. And then, more importantly, I think just the tone of the expansion. Then, of course, aesthetically, I love the very cool, so I think that this was a really cool settlement that was also surrounded by content that I thought was extremely compelling. But overall, just it had this great mix of an amazing view, some solid quests, and some of the most atmospheric music in the game that I just loved, and it just, in my opinion, fit the zone so perfectly. Then, of course, most of the time when you were questing in this area, you were surrounded by an amazing view. Whether you were still at sea level or way up in the cliffs, it was always kind of expansive and rather amazing, actually. And as for the settlement itself, honestly, I really liked how it was kind of half-built and still very much in danger. It definitely honed in the fact that we didn't have any pre-established bases or anything like that on Northrend, and it really was just an expedition that was still very much a threat. Overall, just a great sort of example of them setting the scene and tone of an expansion through just a really effective introduction area. And that is it for my list. Now, of course, there are going to be zones that a lot of Horde people will have played through, that, maybe some Horde settlements or things like that. Well, I haven't really played much Horde, so I don't know. If you guys enjoyed some of that stuff, please let me know. I will definitely be doing a follow-up video to this one, because obviously I don't have a full perspective on 100% of the locations in the game. So do mention what you liked, and I will feature it in the next video. Anyway, that is it for me. In terms of links and things like that, you can check out my twitch.tv stream, with the link being in the description. I think it's really cool. We often have a good time there, and I'm trying to stream 3 times a week. Anyway, with that said, thank you very much for watching, and I will see you next time.